With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown.
And I am Yulana Weeks.
Our top stories.
Tour operators in St. Kitts empowered with tour insurance opportunities.
Nevis advances water security with new wells near Madden's storage tank.
St. Kitts Nevis utility teams return from Carilex Line Workers Rodeo and Training. 2 linemen receive awards.
Nevis Island Assembly passes groundbreaking online gaming bill. Guyana Vice President concerned about circumstances surrounding Adriana Young's death. Attorney General announces probe underway. Antigua and Barbuda Police says latest crime statistics show reduction in reported crimes for 2025 compared to 2024. Internationally, Trump nominates Mike Waltz as United Nations ambassador, taps Marco Rubio as interim national security advisor. Now, the details.
Insurance coverage is one of the most vital aspects of tour operation. Insurance isn't just a safety net, but a lifeline for the tour sector, which faces unique challenges. Tour operators in St. Kitts under the Tour Development Program were introduced to insurance packages for their tours, further empowering them and enhancing the sector's resilience. Minister responsible for tourism, Marsha Henderson, confirmed the initiative during a press conference on April 29.
Importantly, we have also tackled the long outstanding issue of affordable insurance access for our tour operators, removing a major barrier to the business growth. And just to expand on that, we have accessed and introduced our tour operators to the opportunity to have their tours insured, which would allow them to compete with the bigger tour companies, and to have direct access to the cruise lines.
Having insurance is important because it safeguards tour operators from significant financial losses and legal liabilities that could occur from unforeseen situations such as trip cancellations, delays, or accidents during their tours. It also ensures business growth, continuity, and client trust. The Tour Development Program, launched in August 2024, also aims to empower small business operators to create new and unique tour experiences. 15 companies are active participants in the program.
We recognize the true success in tourism is not only measured in numbers, but in the tangible impact of the lives of our citizens. This is why special projects within the ministry remain a central focus for us.
The Nevis Island Administration, NIA, recently marked a significant milestone in its ongoing water security project with a visit to the first of 9 newly drilled wells near the Madden's water storage tank. The well, sunk to a depth of 705 feet with the water table located at 505 feet, it is a critical component of the island's effort to bolster its freshwater supply. According to Floyd Robinson, manager of NIA's Water Resource Management Unit, the infrastructure is designed to optimize the flow of water across key areas of the island.
So we have this well here. This was the first of the wells that we had, the 9 wells that we commissioned the company from Trinidad. Wow. Where we are right now, we're running from generator because we have not gotten the full electricity power to run it. This well, the water from here goes into the tank, goes to the top of the tank, just right behind here. Okay. So this is the first one that was done. We have another one that's in the area. Where we stand is basically what the start of the source of the supply. So we have 2 basic systems of the island. Water from here makes it all the way through Brick Hill, through Castle, into Charlestown. This is typically where we feed 4 Seasons from. And then we have the other well fields that start from Fothergills, go up to Stony Hill and go back into Charlestown.
This strategic layout highlights the government's efforts to feed essential communities and tourism hubs with reliable water access stretching from Madden's area through Charlestown and beyond. Premier of Nevis, the Honourable Mark Brantley, also weighed in on the importance of the project.
I want to commend Minister Brand. He's the waterman. He has really done an excellent job in terms of our water supply on the island. I don't think we can talk about sustainability without water.
Brantley's endorsement underscores the project's place at the core of the island's sustainable development goals. Minister with responsibility for water services in the Nevis Island Administration, the Honourable Spencer Brand, expressed gratitude to the team behind the initiative.
This water is coming from 700 feet beneath the surface of the earth. I want to certainly thank my cabinet colleagues for their support. I also want to thank our water resource manager and our hard-working technical personnel, Clishon, and the entire team at our water department for the hard work that they have done over the last few years in particular.
Water, often regarded as the lifeblood of Nevis, remains a top government priority amid growing challenges posed by climate change. The NIA's delivery of 9 new wells would be viewed as a proactive measure that will ensure reliable and sustainable access to clean water for the island's population. As climate change continues to threaten small island nations, this investment secures a most precious resource for generations to come, positioning Nevis to face the future with strengthened resilience and a sustainable water supply.
St. Kitts Electricity Company Skelec and the Nevis Electricity Company Nevlec were among the region's top utility teams who competed for bragging rights and a chance to dethrone two-time champions, the British Virgin Islands Electricity Company, at Carilex Line Workers Rodeo from April 25 to 27. However, it was the Antigua Public Utilities Authority that emerged as the winners of the 2025 Line Workers Rodeo Challenge. Team Antigua dominated in both the apprentice and experienced line worker categories. In second and third place were the Barbados Light and Power Company and the Grenada Electricity Services Limited, respectively. Notably, Gavin Mitchum of the St. Kitts Electricity Company copped a first position in the pole speed climb, while Conde Jai Romney of the Nevis Electricity Company placed third in the HDV fuse link replacement. They both participated in the apprentice category. An apprentice, according to Carilex rules, is a line worker with less than 4 years of experience, whilst experienced line workers are those with more than 4 years of experience. The competitive events at the Rodeo Challenge included HV cutout installation, HV earth installation, pin and insulator changeout, dead end changeout, pole top rescue, pole top basketball, hurt man rescue, and mystery event. Skelec and Nevlec were listed among 14 utility companies that gathered in Tortola BVI for the 3 days of learning, knowledge sharing, and competition. This event, according to Carilec, is one of many ways it works to develop the capacity of technical teams operating in the region's energy sector. Additionally, line workers who participate in Carilec's Rodeo and Line Workers Training Program are most likely to be selected to form restoration teams to support Caribbean islands stricken by natural disasters, as seen most recently in Carriacou and Petit Martinique in the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl. The initiative falls under Carilec's Disaster Assistance Program. The 2025 Carilec Rodeo and Line Workers Training was held under the theme Informed, Empowered, Safe. The Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation Carilec is an association of electric energy solution providers and other stakeholders operating in the electricity industry in the Caribbean region.
The Nevis Island Assembly has officially passed the Nevis Online Gaming Bill 2025, marking a pivotal advancement by the Nevis Island Administration NIA in its efforts toward economic diversification, innovation, and enhanced revenue streams through the creation of a regulated online gaming sector. Introduced on March 6, 2025 by the Honorable Mark Brantley, Premier and Minister of Finance and Economic Planning, the bill swiftly moved through its second and third reading during the Assembly sitting on April 29, 2025. Premier Brantley emphasized the urgency of economic diversification, particularly as the COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the risks of over-reliance on tourism. Addressing the Assembly, Premier Brantley clarified that the legislation is not intended to create a new economic model, but rather to position Nevis strategically within a rapidly expanding global market.
Why then are we looking at this particular sector? We're looking at this particular sector because, Madam President, the data shows that the global online gaming market is worth some $229.85 billion. Let me correct that. It is estimated to be worth that by 2033. That is, in the next 8 years, the global market is intended to be worth $229.85 billion US.
Brantley cited a June 27, 2024 article from Yahoo Finance which predicted this compounded growth at an annual rate of 10.17%.
That is significant. And we here on the island of Nevis, and as a government and as a cabinet, we have looked on and we have said, why can Nevis not position itself to benefit from some aspect of this anticipated growth? Why can we not seek to participate in what is a global industry? Just like tourism, just like renewable energy, why can't we seek to use this as another string to our economic bow? Why can't we use this to generate revenue for the island and to generate jobs for the island? And so we had discussions, including discussions with potential investors, which I will get to. And we have decided, after those consultations and discussions, to come to this Honorable House to try and create a framework, Madam President, for this activity to occur.
Premier Brantley went on to outline the key objectives and provisions of the bill. The primary aim is to establish a robust regulatory framework that ensures responsible gaming practices, consumer protection, especially for minors, and the prevention of issues such as addiction and financial crimes, including money laundering and fraud. The bill introduces a licensing system to promote fair play compliance and dispute resolution within the sector, alongside provisions for fees, penalties, and enforcement mechanisms. Acknowledging the inherent risks associated with such an endeavor, the Premier highlighted several significant concerns: cybersecurity threats, fraud, know your customer (KYC) compliance, protection from content harmful to minors, and geopolitical risks. He drew lessons from the experience of Antigua and Barbuda, whose online gaming industry was severely impacted by punitive measures from the United States, but later successfully challenged at the World Trade Organization.
We recognize, Madam President, that the effort on which we are currently embarked is not without risks.
To mitigate these, the bill mandates stringent Know Your Customer (KYC) requirements and the use of advanced technology, specifically geofencing to restrict access from residents of St. Kitts and Nevis and from geopolitically sensitive regions, such as the United States and parts of Europe.
We are ensuring through technology that those within the confines of St. Kitts and Nevis are also locked out. Now, for those out there who like to gamble, they may ask, why are we being locked out? Because we think that it's not appropriate for our people to be provided a platform to wager their wages and to spend their money through this type of undertaking.
He compared this approach to that of jurisdictions like the Bahamas, where locals are barred from gambling at casinos, highlighting the wisdom of such protections. Focus on protecting minors is paramount. With high internet penetration in Nevis, the bill explicitly bars children from accessing online gaming platforms. Furthermore, regulatory oversight will be assigned to a dedicated online gaming authority staffed with skilled professionals and a designated regulator appointed by the Minister of Finance to supervise licensing, compliance, and enforcement. Premier Brantley also drew historical parallels to the introduction of the financial services sector in Nevis in 1984. Then legislation created a monopolistic model with a single licensed operator operating under a 10-year exclusive arrangement, a strategy now considered prudent for managing risks. Similarly, the bill proposes granting an initial exclusive license to a single entity for up to 10 years, enabling focused development and oversight of the online gaming industry while maximizing benefits to the island's economy. The bill further lays out rigorous application requirements. Licensed applicants must be properly formed or incorporated under Nevisian law and meet high standards of transparency, integrity, and financial probity. Extensive documentation, including corporate records, financial data compliance policies, and proof of technical readiness, will be scrutinized before licenses are granted. Two primary license types are envisioned: a business-to-customer license allowing direct operation with players, and a business-to-business license for providing gaming products and services to operators. The legislation also remains flexible, allowing for the creation of new license categories as the industry evolves. Significant financial provisions include non-refundable application fees, annual license fees scaled by license type, and penalties for breaches. These revenues are expected to substantially contribute to public funds while supporting the costs of regulatory operations. Consumer protection is a fundamental principle of the law. Operators must implement responsible gaming policies, offer accessible dispute resolution mechanisms, and ensure advertisements do not target vulnerable populations such as minors. Players themselves are bound by a duty to engage responsibly, supported by tools for self-regulation such as spending limits and self-exclusion options. The bill also establishes protocols for compliance monitoring. The regulator and authority will conduct both on-site and off-site inspections to ensure adherence to the legislation, imposing fines or sanctions when warranted. Sections of the bill cover suspension and revocation procedures and provide the prosecution of unlicensed operators. Premier Brantley cited global examples to underscore the potential benefits of the industry.
In 2021, Digital Isle of Man, which is the entity that controls gaming in the Isle of Man, reported that the gaming industry contributed 18%, 1/8 of the island's GDP. That, Madam President, generated a revenue of over £561 million in the Isle of Man in 2021. In the Isle of Man, with a population of just about 83,000 people, the research shows that over 2,000 persons work in the gaming industry. That's local jobs in the Isle of Man. When we look wider, we see that there are participants in this industry across the globe. The research again shows that online gaming is a significant part of the major global economies of the United States, Japan, Germany, the UK, Canada, with emerging markets in places like Brazil, India, and Indonesia. In fact, Madam President, after the United States Supreme Court legalized sport betting in 2018, the US has seen an explosion in online gaming, with states like New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Michigan leading the way. The US currently, that online gaming industry is worth some $24.4 billion. The US is closely followed by the United Kingdom, where the industry generates some $14.6 billion. Australia, where the industry generates some $10.7 billion. Japan, where it generates $6.5 billion. Germany, where it generates $4.3 billion. And Italy, where it generates $2.9 billion. All of these are annual numbers generated from gaming activities in these countries. And the reason I've listed them is because we see some of the major economies of the world: United States, United Kingdom, Japan, Germany, and then we have Italy and Australia bringing up the top 6 in terms of global participation in the online gaming world.
The Premier, in closing, briefly expressed what the bill seeks to achieve for the island of Nevis.
The Nevis Online Gaming Bill then, Madam President, provides a balanced approach to regulating the online gaming industry while fostering innovation and economic growth. It seeks to create a fair and transparent gaming ecosystem that safeguards players and ensures compliance with local laws and ensures that we bulletproof ourselves from some of the risks.
The passage of this legislation demonstrates the NIA's commitment to enhancing economic resilience by embracing opportunities in the global digital economy, fostering innovation, and establishing Nevis as a reputable, secure, and forward-looking jurisdiction for online gaming.
In regional news,
let's tell you now that Vice President Barra Jagdeo said a thorough investigation must still be carried out to determine how 11-year-old Adriana Young drowned last week at the Doubleday Hotel pool. An autopsy, as reported earlier, conducted on Monday, found that she died from drowning. But Mr. Jagdeo believes there must be a thorough investigation to determine whether there was any foul play.
The family still deserves to find out the truth of what happened to Adriana Young. We need to thoroughly investigate the circumstances under which she drowned, whether there was foul play or not. And the President has announced that there shall be a thorough investigation into this matter.
The vice president noted that even he himself from the onset thought that Adriana was murdered, given the circumstances and initial information which were inconsistent. He said now that the cause of death has been established, the way it happened is still to be determined.
I believe more than anything else that a family needs this truth. I've seen a lot of people exercise or express sorrow and grief about the passing of this child, and I believe they do so genuinely. And then I've seen others who I believe don't care anything about this child, but who are using the opportunity to pursue a political motive.
The vice president said the family must and will know the truth. He said the inconsistent information which was first provided by the police will also be the subject of investigations.
We still have to investigate that. We still have to investigate. And I suspect that in the thorough investigation promised by the president, all of those matters, including police action, will be reviewed and investigated.
And Mr. Jagdeo also condemned persons who he said have been instigating violence. He said the Guyana Police Force must protect citizens. Attorney General Anil Nandlal has announced that investigations have commenced into the death of Adriana Young and the police handling of the case from the inception. On his weekly Issues in the News program, the Attorney General acknowledged that although an autopsy was conducted and found that a girl died from drowning, the police force still has a lot of questions to answer. The family of Young had requested an impartial international investigation. The Attorney General did not say who may be leading the police probe.
And there are many questions that have to be answered. And let me state that up front. There are many questions that have to be answered at the level of the police force, in the way the investigation unfolded, and many other things. I don't want to predict. I don't want to prejudice. I don't want to premeditate. I don't want to prophesize. This is a highly controversial matter, a highly contentious matter, and the least said about the investigation, the better.
Mr. Nandlal pleaded with persons to allow the investigations to unfold, explaining that the first phase, which was the autopsy, has been concluded.
You can never get justice through injustice. So, if you want justice, you have to allow a process to take place. If you want revenge or if you want vengeance, it's a different thing. But if you want justice, it must unfold in a particular way prescribed by law. And that process has begun.
He also said while he is pained and grieves the circumstances of last Thursday, the platform should not be used for violence. In fact, he said there could be no justification for the destruction of the Doubleday Hotel, where Young's body was found. The hotel was set ablaze.
Tell me what connection these horrendous criminal outbursts had with Adriana's death. They had no connection whatsoever. And it didn't stop there. It multiplied across the country. And then politicians snooped in. Politicians saw the opportunity to make hay while the sun shines. And rather than behave like national leaders and go there and try to calm the storm, you can be formed, they can be opposed. They can be highly critical of everything, the way the police handle it and everything else, critical of whatever they wish. But they did not have to stand there and encourage the criminal conduct.
The country has been facing a series of protest actions following Adriana Young's death and the autopsy which concluded that she died by drowning.
Assistant Commissioner of Police in charge of the Criminal Investigation Department, Clifton Cabral, says there has been a noticeable decline in crimes reported so far for 2025 in comparison to the corresponding period last year.
At this stage, we have 1,232 cases reported to the police of crime. This year so far, the same comparison, 996. So we see a decline in all areas.
Cabral breaks down the numbers in the types of crimes reported while making the comparison to 2024.
Last year, we have a total of 57 robberies this year, both aggravated robbery, which means we're aggravated with violence, and ordinary robberies. And this year, we have a total of 47. So we have breaking and larceny, house breaking and building breaking and larceny. We have 220 this year. We have 286 last year.
Acting Commissioner of Police Everton Jeffers attributes this decline to new crime-fighting strategies recently implemented by the Royal Police Force.
My team got together and we came up with some strategies, and we basically used the freeze, unfreeze, refreeze technique. And so we're seeing the result of the patrols being more strategic than before.
Jeffers adds the public has been seeing more police presence around the island, even on beaches during public holidays. He further thanks the public for their invaluable assistance in helping with information that leads to solving crimes and capturing culprits. For ABS News, this is Kim Emmanuel Beard reporting.
We now bring you these international reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he will be nominating White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz as the next U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. In a post on Truth Social, he said Waltz has worked hard to put American interests first and will do the same in his new role. Trump added Secretary of State Marco Rubio will serve as National Security Advisor in the interim. For more on this, let's bring in Alan Fisher. He's joining us from the White House. So if Mike Waltz and, interestingly, his deputy would be stepping down from their positions, we have some confirmation from Donald Trump, Alan.
Well, he's out as National Security Advisor. That's clear. There had been talk that Donald Trump had grown disillusioned with Mike Waltz, not least because of the incident back in March, when, of course, he inadvertently added a journalist to a signal group that was talking about airstrikes in Yemen. At that point, Donald Trump said he was standing by him, that he was a fine man and that he would learn from this. But there have been reports that he was looking for alternatives for National Security Advisor at least for a number of days, if not for longer than that. And that gained momentum over the last few hours when people were saying that he was absolutely going to be fired as National Security Advisor, but perhaps the White House was looking for a, quote, soft landing for him. It appears he's found that. He will be nominated to be the US ambassador to the United Nations. Of course, that was due to be Elise Stefanik, a congresswoman from upstate New York, but that had to be pulled because they were worried about losing the Republican majority in the House of Representatives, not least because one of the seats that was up for the election was Mike Waltz, who stepped into the role as National Security Advisor. What is interesting in the post from Donald Trump is that Marco Rubio will now act interim as National Security Advisor until he finds someone to take up the role. That's because part of the problem is that he's also replacing the deputy, we are told, at the National Security Advisor, and a number of other senior figures at the NSA were removed just a few weeks ago on the advice of Laura Loomer, a right-wing activist who told Donald Trump they weren't loyal enough to him and to his vision. In fact, if Rubio does become the National Security Advisor, he will combine the role with Secretary of State. He won't give the other one up. And that'll be the first time that has happened since Henry Kissinger, there's a name from the past, managed to combine both roles in the Nixon White House. So just to recap what has happened, Mike Waltz out as National Security Advisor at the White House. He will move to the United Nations as ambassador, almost certainly going to be confirmed by the Senate. That is a Senate confirmable position. And in the interim, Marco Rubio, who is Secretary of State, will also act as interim national security advisor to Donald Trump.
In Sydney's West, the final moments of campaigning are underway. Independent candidate Dr. Ziad Basuni says he wants to improve healthcare and increase support for low-income households. But events thousands of kilometres from Australia are also on his mind.
The issue of Gaza obviously is in the minds of a lot of people. The Labour government have done everything against what the people wanted to do here. So which would include, visas for relatives. They've chosen to refuse 70% of the visas coming from. Thank you. They've chosen to refuse 70% of the visas for people coming from Gaza.
According to census data, more than a quarter of the population here is Muslim, and many residents have relatives living in the Middle East.
Domestic issues like cost of living, housing and healthcare have dominated the election campaign. But Israel's war on Gaza is prompting some voters to factor in foreign policy as well, particularly in electorates like this one in Western Sydney.
At the last election, this area was won by Labour with a margin of more than 15%. Now, some voters say they feel their support has been taken for granted.
I was a former Labor volunteer and I've completely switched sides now and I'm backing the local independent here. For me, Gaza is the most important issue. I think genocide is a red line for many of us in the Muslim community.
Analysts say it's unlikely independent candidates and minor parties could win in this area, but they could chip away at support for the major parties. The elected representative here, Senior Labour Minister Tony Burke, has held this area for more than 2 decades.
I'm very proud that the government stood on the right side of history and voted for ceasefire. I'm glad of those decisions, and I've personally been the one who's been issuing the visas to the Palestinians who are here.
The Labour government has issued hundreds of visas to Palestinians fleeing Gaza. That move was criticised by the opposition leader Peter Dutton, who said it could pose a national security risk to Australia. A new advocacy group, Muslim Votes Matter, is encouraging voters to choose candidates who have spoken out against Israel's conduct.
We're not for or against any political party. We want to demonstrate the ability of our community to be a political force.
Beyond the election, he says they'll keep the pressure on politicians regardless of who is in government. Jessica Washington, Al Jazeera, Sydney.
Democratic Republic of Congo has launched a bid to strip former President Joseph Kabila of his lifelong immunity. That's so he can face charges of supporting the M23 insurgency in the country's east that's rapidly escalated this year.
In 2002.
Kabila, who stepped down following a 2018 election after nearly 2 decades in power, has previously denied backing the rebels.
The risks is across the country.
He's been outside Congo since late 2023, mostly in South Africa, but recently said he would return to help find a solution to the rebel crisis.
If I am weak, whose fault is it? Is it the fault of my neighbor or my enemy, or is it my fault?
Since January, M23 rebels have seized large areas, including eastern Congo's 2 biggest cities. Congo's government is seeking to draft a peace deal to end the conflict this week. However, a return by Kabila could complicate a US-backed bid to end the rebellion. The region contains valuable minerals that US President Donald Trump's administration is keen to help mine. Justice Minister Constant Mutamba told reporters in Kinshasa on Wednesday evening that the Congolese Army's Attorney General had asked the Senate to revoke Kabila's immunity from prosecution. He said Kabila should return to Congo to face justice or risk being tried in absentia. The permanent secretary of Kabila's Party for Reconstruction and Democracy said the attempt to lift Kabila's immunity showed the government feared his return.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were:
tour operators in St. Kitts empowered with tour insurance opportunities.
Nevis advances water security with new wells near Madden's storage tank.
St. Kitts Nevis utility teams return from Carilex Line Workers Rodeo and Training. 2 linemen receive awards.
Nevis Island Assembly passes groundbreaking online gaming bill. Guyana Vice President concerned about circumstances surrounding Adriana Young's death. Attorney General announces probe underway. Antigua and Barbuda Police says latest crime statistics show reduction in reported crimes for 2025 compared to 2024. Internationally, Trump nominates Mike Waltz as United Nations ambassador, taps Marco Rubio as interim national security advisor.
Thank you for listening.